just talking about an individual story, this time in the Big Finish journey, which is how I started. I did the initial 10 releases as their own separate videos and then started compiling them, but I thought, you know what, Spare Parts has such a reputation, I'm going to talk about it on its own. I'm also a little bit ill at the moment. I've got a bit of a cold, so if you hear me sniffling or whatever, that'll be why. I do apologise. But yeah, Spare Parts is written by Mark Platt, stars Peter Davison as the Doctor and Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, and it's a Cyberman story. It's the genesis of the Cybermen, essentially. I was intrigued going into this one because it has such a reputation, right? You know, everyone talks about how fantastic Spare Parts is, and it is a very good story. Do I think that it is? Would I say it's the best story of the range so far? For me personally, I don't think I would. It's a very good story, don't get me wrong, and I don't believe in contrarianism for the sake of it. I listened to this a few days ago, and some of it certainly has stuck with me, but some of it kind of lost me a little bit. What I will say is that I found the sort of world of Mondas and the sort of police state of the partially converted Cybermen and all of this, I found that very compelling and interesting and well drawn, you know. There are also some really standout moments, just generally, you know. I think the one everyone would recall is when, what's the character's name? We meet a side character in part 1. We meet a family of side characters in part 1, and the character of Yvonne, who first meets Nyssa, is taken off to become a Cyberman, and is converted, but is not fully sort of processed, essentially, and so she sort of is roaming around as a Cyberman, but is not fully, all her emotions removed and everything, and goes to the home. And you know, if you've listened to the story, and also obviously I'm going to talk full spoilers in this as well, if you couldn't tell, because it's such a well-known story. The line that really sticks out is she talks about she thinks, before she's converted, she thinks that the Cyberman suits are a uniform for going on the surface of the planet, and she wants her dad to see her uniform, she wants her father to see her uniform, and she goes to the house after being converted. And you've got this, I mean, Nicholas Briggs does a fantastic job with the voices, the sing-songy Mondasian Cyberman voices, you know, and saying, "Father must see my uniform," and it's a really horrible, in a good way, scene. It's uncomfortable and it's sad, and it's creepy. This Cyberman is not really there and has gone to the home of the person they used to be and is with their family and is just in pain and crying, and it's a very striking scene, and that alone kind of, it's so striking that the story can get to that point. It kind of brings up everything else around it, which is not bad. The other stuff around this story is not bad. I found the ending was a little bit odd. I thought it kind of was a little bit anticlimactic and just sort of ended, and then that was that. But I did, I did really enjoy this. I don't know if its reputation kind of exceeded it a little bit, but then, I thought that might happen with The Chimes of Midnight, and I love that story. I thought it was a fantastic story. So it's not always the case that if a story has a great reputation, then it will, be underwhelming because of that. I don't think that is the case at all. But there are great moments. There's a great moment where it sort of plays with the Doctor being converted into a Cyberman, and obviously you know that he isn't, but it's played so well that you kind of go, oh, maybe he is. Like, yeah, obviously, not only because they wouldn't do that anyway, but also because, well, this is a story about the 5th Doctor, but we've got stories about the 6th, 7th and 8th Doctors, so we know he doesn't die here, like we've seen him die. But it's a really well played moment where Nyssa believes it in the moment, and so in the moment you kind of believe it as well, and that's a really great thing. I thought what was good as well, there's none of the side characters. It's not a black and white thing of these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. Like, everyone's got shades of grey. People are allies until they're not, or they're enemies until they're not. It's everyone's dealing with their own story, and the Doctor and Nyssa are just getting caught up in it. I think where this story really stands is what it does with the Cybermen. Which obviously that's its strongest point, but it's in the horror of it. It's in the. There's a moment where the citizens are being sort of shuffled in to the hall or wherever it is, essentially to go and be converted, and I don't know how intentional it is, I don't know how accurate this reading is, but I kind of got like Holocaust vibes, like if you the ending of The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, where they're all being shuffled into the gas chamber. I kind of got that, like that idea of these people all being shuffled in, all being moved in together as a group, and they're all scared and they don't know what's going on, and you, the spectator, the viewer, the listener in this case, you know that what they're going to is their deaths ultimately, and it's, especially in this case, it's not just a death, it's such a horrible, mutilation and a perversion of life, but they don't know that, and they're kind of scared and they're concerned, but they're all being moved in together. Yeah, I really got that, and you can see shades of that. This story is credited, or Mark Platt is sort of thanked in the credits of Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel, right? Because this story inspired that story, and in those sorts of moments you can tell, the idea of people being shuffled. Of course, they sort of tone it down for kids' television, so it's not as Holocausty. People go to they become possessed and they walk to their deaths a bit, not willingly, but they just do it. But the fact that, like in this story, you see a converted person who you've seen in the story previously. You see Jackie being converted. You don't see it being converted. You see a Cyberman who used to be Jackie. And I really enjoy Rise of the Cybermen, The Age of Steel, and I think it makes sense to crib elements of this, because I think it's those sorts of things that it's the inherent horror of the Cybermen that kind of always works, and it's a thing that, wasn't often time kind of also cribs from this story as well, and that's a story that people adore, and I don't think it's a bad thing to crib from a great story, because this is a really strong story. It's not my favourite of the range so far. I think I preferred stories like The Fearmonger and The Marrying Conspiracy and Chimes of Midnight, but it is a very strong story. I'm not going to argue that, of course, and I'm very glad to have listened to it. I can see why it's so beloved. I can see why it got sort of cribbed for the new series. I think it's a great story for Nyssa, actually, who, if you listen to these Big Finish reviews, you will know that Nyssa is not a companion I particularly care for, but I thought she was good in this. It's a good story. I in a way, I wish I had a little bit more to say about it, because I had sort of decided I was going to talk about it separately beforehand, before I'd listened to it. That was partially to do with the way of splitting up the stories, and it was sort of, it makes sense in terms of how I'm splitting up the first 50 stories. It makes sense to me anyway. But yeah, but I did enjoy it, and I can see why it has a reputation. It does. It didn't quite work for me, but it's a great story. So yeah, have you listened to Spare Parts? Let me know what you think of it if you have. Is it your favourite story? Am I crazy for not loving it? And yeah, other than that, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for your time, and I will see you all next week for the next 4 stories, beginning with Ish. Thank you.